The Lottery, Bloody Billion. Chapter 5. First Blood for Rook. The city didn't reset, it just changed the channel. Dawn dragged its feet behind the bridges, gray and stingy, the kind of morning that makes men swear they're quitting everything they love, then pick it back up, because quitting doesn't pay cash. Rook lay under concrete with a knife on his thigh and a chain coiled near his wrist. Dane sat cross-legged, blunt embers a soft orange dot by his lips, eyes doing that wired ballet between grief and jokes. Little Ty slept thin, the way kids do when survival has become homework, and they've cheated enough to pass. Above them, the big screen cracked its knuckles and started the sermon. Bounty guidelines updated for your safety. The host's voice had that toothpaste-clean tone that made murder sound like a brunch special. New bullet points crawled. Augmented reality overlay for body positioning, for accuracy. Discount blood panels. Verify drug influence for bonus. Commentary. A hotline for ethical concerns. Ringing somewhere in a basement no one staffed. The number of submissions ticked like a metronome with ADHD. Coffee, Dane whispered hoarse, not to Rook, not to anyone, just to a god he didn't believe in. Rook tapped the tin. Dane shook his head. No rails, he said. My hands need to tell the truth this morning. Rook liked that answer. He stretched until the knee wrote him an angry postcard about last night's hoist trick. He filed it under "Shut up later." He watched Ty breathe a few seconds more, then put a hand on the boy's shoulder and squeezed twice. Ty woke without flinch or sound, eyes open, mouth thin, present. We move, Rook said. They broke the little camp and tucked it into concrete like a secret nobody had dared to tell. The underpass spit them into a morning that smelled like wet metal and leaf, and a bakery 3 blocks over pushing butter into the world, like a forgiveness no one earned. Rook steered them toward food, because food is permission to decide. The bakery was one of those places that refuses to die. It sells cheap bread that tastes like old love and knows how to keep its mouth shut. The woman behind the counter clocked Rook, then Dane, then Ty, and decided she'd seen worse and better, and both had paid cash. She bagged a day-old loaf and slipped 2 short pastries in with it, never looking at the screens showing Rook's DMV glare beside a gold bar that said 1 million, paid. She leaned in without leaning and said, "Be small." Rook nodded gratitude and left a bill that could have bought a week's sugar in another life. They ate on the move, tearing bread into heat and salt. The morning was thick with men who'd failed to sleep. They walked like ideas, looking for a body. Blunts burned like tiny suns in slack mouths. Coke turned a corner of the block into a study group for bad decisions. Sponsored vans idled wherever a drone wanted a nap. The cops made perimeters and looked a little sick around the eyes. Bridge later, Dane said. Ledger owes Gravity a favor. Bridge never, Rook said. Ledger's writing a geometry I don't need to grade. Rook cut them right and right again into an access spine behind a row of clinics and cash-only dentists. He wanted the laundromat alley, a narrow vein with a blind turn where morning deliveries kissed old machines, tight space, predictable dodges. He liked the alley because it taught the same lesson every time. If you avoid corners, you avoid luck. If you use corners, you own math. Half a rail? Dane asked, needing no but asking anyway. After, Rook said. We're about to get visited. Ty looked up with that new, feral focus. Ledger? Ledger sleeps when the camera sleeps, Rook said. This is amateurs on overtime, looking to pay off whatever shame woke up with them. He was right. Rook heard it before he saw it. The scrape of sneaker on grit, the whisper that isn't whisper. A man telling himself he's calm, the faint static of a chest cam with a cracked housing fighting to stream. The alley's mouth birthed 3 men and a camera shadow. 2 jitter fast, 1 large with a neck tattoo that read something like faith in block caps, too confident for the skin they lived on. The camera shadow, behind them, not with them, hugged the corner, red LED glowing like a tiny patient eye. Morning, the neck tattoo announced, chest puffed with borrowed television. We here for business. Dane exhaled smoke slow, that theatrical curled lip he did when he wanted to spam somebody's ego. What kind of business puts a camera behind the boss? Neck Tattoo smiled without humor. Verification. We all got bills. The Jitter boys weren't smiling. They had that hopped-up, jaw-grind brightness, strokes of white at their nostrils, knuckles chipped from proving themselves to metal and each other. One held a pry bar with painter's tape on the handle. The other had a box cutter and bad ambitions. Chest cam behind them panned, already narrating in whispers. Underpass suspect. Verification soon. This is for educational purposes. Rook's hands dangled harmless, fingers loose, shoulders down, the way wild dogs soften when they walk past a porch where a bigger dog lives. His eyes were awake and lazy. He took 2 steps back into the alley so they'd follow, so the corner would teach. This where we exchange numbers? Rook asked softly. That's the number, Neck Tattoo said, chin to the gold bar on some distant screen. Yours just got to get written under a color filter. Ty was a shadow on Rook's hip, small enough to vanish, big enough to be a problem. Rook made a tiny movement, palm down, angle left. Ty slid into the negative space by the industrial dryer vent, where the wall bulged. Dane took one more drag and placed the blunt ember down on a metal trash can, rim like a lit warning. Neck Tattoo pulled a flex tie from his pocket, a zip tie big enough to fasten a forearm to a bad promise. Hands first, he said. We do the thing respectful. Respectful is wild, Dane said gently. The chest cam voice behind them said, approach with caution, like a weather channel. He edged nearer, lens greedy. Rook saw the brand sticker at the corner of the housing, an offshoot of Hunt right now, smaller, dirtier. He filed it for later. Rook lifted his hands waist high, palms out. Let me give you my good side, he said. Neck Tattoo lifted his tie. Jitterboy with the pry bar stepped in to flank. Jitterboy with the box cutter slipped right, blade already out, eager. The alley narrowed, the world simplified, the corner got honest. Rook moved first. He always does when the light is wrong. He didn't go for the knife, he went for the pry bar. Because men who grip steel with tape think it gives them rights. He stepped inside, both hands on the bar, twisted down and forward, making the man's wrist remember it had bones. The bar left Jitter's hand like a confession. Rook let the bar drop, didn't grab it, kicked it to Dane. Dane scooped it with a sneaker and flicked it up to his own palm like a street magician. Jitterboy too slashed at the space Rook had just left. Rook returned the favor by stepping into the slash and taking it across the forearm shallow, on purpose, a tax you pay to own a rhythm. He used his bleeding forearm like a lever against the box cutter wrist, wrenched the joint until the blade's logic failed. The cutter fell. Ty's sneaker did its work, sending it skittering under a dented washer. Neck Tattoo went for the zip tie. He looped faster than Rook liked. Man had practiced, but Rook rotated his wrist and gave the tie the wrong angle to bite. It cinched on air. Neck Tattoo swore like a deacon who dropped wine. He reached for Rook's throat with that church hand like he had a confirmation to perform. Rook's palm met his thumb joint and taught it humility in one tiny click. Neck Tattoo's face changed, the alley got smaller. Behind them, the chest cam guy made a mistake. He stepped into the alley to get a better shot. Dane clocked it with the little tilt his face does when a trick is about to be seen. He snapped his wrist and threw the pry bar like a lazy militia, flat and fast. It hit the chest cam, cracked the housing again, and the lens went blind with a spark and a cry. What the? Hey, that's... Dane was already moving. He slid to the camera guy and palmed the rig, yanking it off the shoulder strap with a roll that looked like shoplifting. Copyright claim, Dane muttered, and smashed the rig on the corner lip. Plastic confessing against brick, dead stream. The alley lost its audience. Jitterboy 1 saw his verification die and lost his nerve with it. He went for the blunt on the trash can, grabbed it wrong, burned his finger, shouted shh, like a teen in an old movie. Ty took his calf with a hard, quick kick, and Jitter folded onto one knee without permission. Ty backed into shadow again, small and necessary. Neck Tattoo still had the zip tie. He looped again, slick with rage now, less precise. Rook slid his chain across the man's knuckles like a schoolmaster with a steel ruler. The chain didn't care about knuckles. Neither did Rook. Bone yelled. Neck Tattoo's hand opened by reflex, and one of his 2 rings flew. A tiny chrome cross that bounced off ratty concrete and disappeared under a busted pallet. "End of service," Rook said. He wrapped the chain twice around Neck Tattoo's forearm and jerked down hard, pivoting as he did. The move used Neck's body against itself, shoulder against elbow, elbow against pride. The big man gasped. The sound bricks make when they get knocked out of a wall. Rook let the chain go slack just enough to translate pain into obedience. Neck bent, heavy, fought a choke that wasn't, tried to bite Rook's cheek. Rook gave him his forehead instead. Forehead met teeth. Teeth lost a war. Blood came like punctuation. The zip tie fell. Rook stepped back and gave the chain a last small kiss across the bridge of Neck's nose, not to break, to erase authority. The Jitter Boys had a choice. Box Cutter Boy reached under the washer for his blade, found only lint and someone else's coin. Prybar Boy looked at Dane holding the bar with a familiarity that said the bar had never known a home like this. Dane lifted it, not like a bat, not like a hammer, like a thing that answered mathematical questions. "No," Prybar Boy said, voice having good instincts for once. He backed up, palms up, eyes on Rook like a man who just found the correct church. "Go," Rook told him. "Tell your camera friends to film something that won't cry later." Prybar Boy hesitated. Pride is a parasite. Then ran. Box Cutter Boy followed, one shoe flapping from a broken lace. The busted chest cam guy scooped his pieces and tripped over his own breath getting out. The alley belonged to the 3 of them again, plus Neck Tattoo, kneeling, mad and humiliated, blood name stringing his teeth. "You good?" Dane asked, holding the pry bar like a sketch pencil he'd drawn violence with and now wanted to sign. "Yeah," Rook said. The forearm slice stung. He ignored it. His body logged the damage and shoved it into a folder named Later. Neck Tattoo, to his credit or his detriment, tried to stand for round 2. Men like that always do. Rook didn't enjoy what came next, and he did it anyway because enjoyment is a luxury you can't pack in alleys. Neck lunged with his head low like an anger bull. Rook stepped aside just enough, hooked the chain around the man's neck, not a choke, a leash, and used the wall like a partner, bouncing the man's weight into the brick in a gentle, rude way that asked his bones to sit down. Neck's legs quit arguing. He slid. Rook eased him to the ground, chain slackening as respect, not mercy. He bent, fingers quick, and checked the man's pockets. He wasn't harvesting cash. He was logging threats. A second box cutter, a small vial half full of clear that smelled like the wrong kind of awake, a laminated content creator/press card some moron had printed with a URL that didn't work. Rook palmed the press card. "Proof," he said. "Proof of what?" Dane asked. "That he tried to kill me and I made a better plan," Rook said. Ty, who had moved back into sun, pointed with a chin. "His ring," he said softly. The little chrome cross had rattled under the pallet and caught on a cobweb of abandoned zip ties. It was the kind of gaudy prayer someone wears because they think God reads jewelry. Rook retrieved it and rolled it in his palm. He didn't like trophies. He liked leverage. He slid the ring into his pocket anyway, because this morning felt like a ledger with too many credits and not enough debits. Behind them, the alley's mouth filled with the smallest crowd. 2 men with their phones held low, a woman holding a bag of laundry like a reliquary. No one clapped, no one cheered. The woman's eyes said, "Thank you," without asking what for. The men's eyes said, "We weren't here." Rook liked those eyes better. Neck made a noise, the kind bodies make when they're counting ribs with breath. He wasn't dead. He was more useful than that. Rook lifted him by the collar and walked him 2 steps to the trash can. He took the blunt Dane had set on the rim and pressed it to his own lips. 1 pull, no cough, smoke in his sleeve. He put the blunt between Neck's lips and held it. "Breathe," Rook said. "Get your nose back." Neck puffed once, like he hated taking instructions from physics. He swallowed smoke and coughed a laugh. "We almost had you," he croaked. "You brought cameras to a corner," Rook said. "Corners don't like witnesses. They delete them." Dane broke the pry bar into the kind of leverage tool you make when you don't have the right tool, then tossed the pieces into the dumpster with a dull, righteous sound. He turned, eyes scanning for anyone who looked like they knew what story they just saw. Ty watched Rook's hands like a student, every finger movement a diagram he'd draw later with his own muscles. "We can't live here," Rook said. "More will come to reshoot." They moved, not far, just enough to let the alley breathe out its first headline. Rook took them through the laundromat proper. Heat, moisture, coins clacking, the sound of domestics trying to outvote death. A woman folded towels into squares she could control. A boy slept open-mouthed on a bench with a hoodie over his eyes. Rook let the normal pierce him. Normal was a drug, and he didn't need the wrong dose. On the other side, they hit the bodega with the old radio and bought 3 waters and a roll of gauze. The clerk rang them up with a nod that counted as pastoral care. Rook wrapped the forearm cut loose and clean, wound tight. Dane watched and muttered, "You could have ducked." "I needed the rhythm," Rook said. "Some dances use blood for counting." Ty popped a pastry into his mouth without apology. He chewed and asked with crumbs, "We keep the camera's card?" Dane grinned and produced the SD like a magician pulling rent out of a hat. "Educational purposes," he said, snapping it in half. "Class dismissed." They took the long way back to the underpass ribs, stopping everywhere a camera would assume they wouldn't. Rook tried the hoist yard again, empty now, grief workers gone, the mirror in shards. He checked the freight spur, sponsored van swapped with a food truck selling victory dogs for $10 apiece to men who had never won a dog in their life. He clocked the South Bridge, Ledger's silhouette a rumor, not a certainty. He listened for Ledger's angled foot. He didn't hear it. That made him suspicious. Ledger didn't always announce himself with limbs. By the time they slid back into shade, the screens had found a new tragedy to chew. A second official bounty was in verification. Audio off, commenters providing a soundtrack. We up, prayers, stay safe, link. L, down bad, bag secured. The host's teeth looked tired and more expensive. The lottery van rolled like a sacrament. Dane lit a new blunt with reverence. Rook took 2 calm pulls, passed it to Ty, who took the smallest honest taste a kid can take and still become someone he could respect in the mirror. Dane rolled his wrist and raised a brow. "So," he said, "first blood?" Rook shrugged, understatement's armor. "One less camera," he said. "One less tie, one more ring I don't know how to spend." "You took proof," Dane said, amused. "You gonna turn it in somewhere?" "I'll spend it when a door doesn't want to open and needs a ghost story," Rook said. They started to lay the tarp when Rook's skin tightened. He looked up the column's throat and saw sunlight get interrupted wrong. He smelled a chemical note he'd learned to hate, pepper, but not orange, something new, less honest. He heard a footstep he recognized before his mind said the name. Ledger didn't walk in. He let his shadow arrive first, then his voice polite. "They say first blood tastes like pennies," he said. "I always thought it tasted like learning." Dane's hand twitched toward the bottle. Rook didn't move. Ty went small and sideways into a cut of concrete, the way lizards do when a hawk's shadow slides over their day. Ledger stepped into the light like a man checking on a construction project he'd invested in. Bruise on his shoulder, almost invisible under the hoodie, pride wearing makeup. "You took a ring," Ledger said. He didn't look at Rook's pocket. He didn't need to. "Careful. Jewelry makes religion sticky. Your boy tried to baptize me with a box cutter," Rook said. Ledger smiled, chipped tooth bright in shadow. "He's not my boy." "I don't have boys. I have employees and enemies and occasionally a pleasant surprise. You keep applying for the third one." "You bring flowers?" Dane asked, sneer gentle and sincere at the same time. Ledger looked at the gauze on Rook's forearm, and his grin pinched just 1 centimeter like he admired the wrap job. "This is the part where I tell you there are easier ways," he said. "This is the part where I don't believe you," Rook said. Ledger's eyes softened. Some men call that kindness. In him it was just acknowledging an equation had balanced. "Fair," he said. He glanced at Ty, and then carefully nodded him again. "You keeping the choir, boy?" "He sings on key," Rook said. Ledger put his hands in his hoodie pocket and tilted his head toward the city, like he could taste its sugar spike from here. "The bounty bought me 30 crews I didn't have to interview," he said. "They're making a mess. I'll clean it later. Today I let them flush you from recesses so I can see what rooms you love." Rook took that in and fed the letter to a fire he'd built in his chest years ago. "You can't find a room I don't own." Ledger laughed, honest and low. "You own alleys the way gulls own wind." "It's beautiful. It's also a rental." He backed away a step, then another, not turning because men like him don't make offerings like that. "First blood means you live to name your second," he said. "Try not to get literary about it. The cameras hate metaphors." "Tell them to chase mirrors," Dane said. "We broke one for you." "I saw," Ledger said. He tapped his bruised shoulder with 2 fingers, as if to ask it to hum the Hook's song again. Then he vanished into noon, leaving the chemical note behind as a ghost hand you keep smelling on your jacket long after you wash it. Rook let his breath track with the drone hum. He counted off exits again, because repetition is prayer you can love without kneeling. He laid the chain on his thigh. He rolled his shoulders slow, told the knee he'd make it a deal later, and put the chrome cross in the tin next to the little white truth they carried. He didn't like it rattling around free. "Rest then move," he said. "We earned 10 minutes and a lie." Dane nodded, eyes already calling the next settings. Ty sat with his back straight, small hands folded like he had an appointment with a future that refused to RSVP. Outside, the billboard changed graphics, a gold bar sliding into a slot, a meter filling, the word verified popping like a balloon. Somewhere a mother put her hand flat on a TV screen and then puked into a sink. Somewhere a hunter got lucky and called it skill. Somewhere a lawyer drafted a contract for exclusive grief rights and smiled at the retainer. Somewhere a kid asked for a blue slush and got silence, then a drive-through because silence needs sugar. Under the bridge, Rook took his first breath since the alley and let it taste like pennies and bread and smoke. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. He indexed the new ache and the new proof and the new debt and stacked them where they wouldn't fall when he had to run. He closed his eyes for a blink and saw 2 things. A zip tie that didn't cinch, and a ring that would open a door later, because rings do that even when they're stupid. He opened his eyes and saw the city. It didn't blink back. 10 minutes, he said. 10. Then what? Dane asked. Rook let the question hang like a blade. Then we make somebody else's camera die of boredom, he said, and palmed the blunt ember to keep it alive a little longer, because small fires matter more than the ones you put on streams. 10 minutes turned into 8 because this city steals change. The bridge's ribs sang low while a drone purred somewhere like an insect that learned Latin. Dane pinched the blunt to life, let the ember breathe, then killed it flat with a thumb so it'd be there later, like a promise. Little Ty held still in that exacting quiet kids have when they realize quiet is a tool and not a punishment. Rook checked his wrap, tugged the gauze down once, sniffed the air for pepper or perfume or ledger. He caught the thin, hospital-clean bite of ammonium and the sweet residue of blunt leaf from 100 doorways. No ledger, no saints, just business. 2 blocks to the glass yard, he said. We make noise on their schedule, off cue, off beat. Dane rolled his head slow, keeping his neck loose. Half a rail? Half, Rook agreed. He tapped the tin, cut a thin line on the lid, and each of them took what they needed. Rook pilot dosage neat, Dane a smudge extra, Ty a respectful no, because his job was eyes and feet, not edges. The coke brightened the room in Rook's skull, and the hallway in there stopped flickering. They slipped into daylight that pretended to be afternoon. The sky one giant gray roll-down gate. The big public screen spat a new sermon. Respect living spaces during bounty activities, with a smiling officer pointing at a line of tape that no one would honor. The crawl at the bottom counted submissions like rainfall. They cut across a loading court littered with busted pallets and a forklift that had never met a safety inspection. The lamination shop's dumpster was open, the smell of solvents hanging like a dare. Rook clocked exits, 4 honest, 1 lying about a deadbolt. He led them into the glass yard because sometimes you return to the scene, not to repeat, but to subtract. Someone had tried to clean the mirror mess from the night before. It looked worse. Shards swept into windrows that caught the light and threw it wrong. The place was fenced again, but fences don't hold if you know the sag. Rook crouched and slid the cardboard square over the razor reel. They went over like whispers. Inside, the wind sang through the racks, making the tempered panes hum a little like a chorus of polite threats. He could taste the clean metal tang that follows glass dust. The yard was quiet enough for you to hear a plan think. Fast, Rook said. We plant a myth and leave. What's the myth? Dane asked, already smiling. That we climb the silo ladders at dawn to watch the river breathe, Rook said. Let 'em sell romance to their drones. Ty snorted. They love that corny shit. They do, Rook said. It'll buy us a bad angle somewhere else. He hopped a short wall to a service shed, jimmied the simple latch, and found what the city always keeps for men who know how to ask: tools. Coils of baling wire, a bucket of sandy cement, a painter's telescoping pole with a roller long dead. He took the pole, unscrewed the head, and kept the aluminum shaft, a light, stiff line with a threaded bite. An improvised spear if it had to be. A flag for a lie if it didn't. He was turning to leave when a shadow cut light on the far racks. Not Ledger. Too tall, wrong center of gravity. The walk had adrenaline trying to pilot with a broken map. Corporate shells, breathable nylon, chest cams blinking red. Plumbing and drain magnets had gone. New logo now, real-time proof in a font that begged for subscriptions. 2 men, 1 woman. The woman held a tablet like a shield. The men had compact batons and the kind of smile you get at a management seminar. Performative, patient, slightly murderous. Good morning, the closer one sang like a store greeter. We were just hoping to... Rook didn't answer. Talk eats seconds. He handed Ty the pole with a look that meant keep, then angled to the left so the racks broke line of sight. Sir, the greeter said, tone skating into command. We're here to verify a sighting. Dane leaned against a glass rack, bored and bright. Verify my ass, he said, perfect friendly. You're here to harvest views. The woman's tablet kept filming. We're here to protect the community, she said, not believing it enough to sell it. Put the tablet down, Rook said, voice flat. She didn't. The taller man flexed his baton and edged to flank. Rook felt the alley again. That sweet tightening of choices. His skin prickled. He saw the camera angle like a ghost diagram. They'd cut the segment later, slow-mo his face when it broke. Monetize somebody's grief that didn't belong to them. Hands out, the greeter said, projecting to the lens. Let's keep it. The crack arrived before the lens could get its last lie in. From the yard's back gate, a crate came in hard. One of those tall wood frames they use for stacking panes. It rode a pallet Jack Satan would have respected, wheels chirping. The man pushing it wasn't sponsored. Ex-cop posture, forearms burnt with old sun, eyes too awake. His partner, church boy wrist from the catwalk, ran a line tied from the crate to a pickup parked outside the gate. They'd turned the glass yard into a trap and the sponsored triplets into bait. Move, Dane barked. Rook grabbed Ty, shoved him behind the nearest rack as the crate plowed into a row of mirrors like a battering ram in a museum. Glass went biblical, showering, screaming, teeth of light everywhere. The sponsored crew yelped and ducked. The church boy flicked the line. The pickup revved. The crate pivoted and ripped through a second row. The hum became a howl. Rook understood the geometry in a heartbeat. The ex-cop had rigged the yard to turn into a glitter storm. In glitter storms, cameras die or thrive. People do one of the same. He grabbed Dane's sleeve and spun him flat. Down! A pane exploded inches from Dane's nose, slicing the air with a hiss that sounded like a bad word learned late. The greeter with the baton tried to posture and got a mouthful of splinters for his trouble. The woman fell on her tablet like a mother on a child. It kept recording and probably earned her a bonus. Church boy saw Rook then, really saw him, and his eyes lit like an altar got its candle. He pointed, handshake steady now. Proof, he said to the ex-cop. That one. The ex-cop took it in with one blink. He adjusted his grip on the pallet jack handle and steered the third crate into a hard turn. The wood groaned. The racks shuddered. The yard became a drum set getting murdered. Rook didn't run. Running made you write your ending in someone else's hand. He went toward the crate. Tie, he said, an order and a prayer. Left, gate rope. The boy nodded and ghosted toward the line the church boy held, small and quiet, feet soft on glitter that wanted to tell on him. Dane slid along the rack, grabbed the fallen baton, and tossed it to Rook. Rook let it pass his hand and drop. He wanted something uglier. He snatched a shard of safety glass big as a cafeteria tray and wedged it between two frames to give it edge and height. Improvisation is taste. This yard had a menu. The ex-cop drove the crate at them with that nasty calm, pushing, eyes narrowed like he'd waited his whole useless career to aim a pallet jack at a man worth the story. Rook stepped into the path and to the side, half beat off same as he moved on the bridge, and kicked the jack wheel. It jumped, jutted left, smashed into the post, and bled momentum. The ex-cop cursed, not theatrical, disappointed, professional. Rook didn't give him the next move. He grabbed the jack handle with one hand and the ex-cop's wrist with the other, rolled the wrist in, and slapped the man's ear with his forearm, tender and vicious. The ex-cop's world tilted. He still didn't let go. Muscle memory is a priest that refuses to retire. Church boy lunged past them with a small hook like he was born to drag bodies from rivers. Dane cut him off with the fallen baton and a knee into the soft argument under the ribs. The hook hit the ground and bounced. Dane stepped on it, smiled with good teeth and said, "Mine," like the city had gifted him a utensil. The sponsored trio tried to pivot into heroes. The woman raised the tablet like a shield and shouted, "We're witnesses!" The glass nicked her sleeve and she screamed like a conscience stabbed with facts. Ty reached the rope where it tied to the pickup's hitchball and gnawed at the knot with his fingers like a fox. The church boy saw him and surged. Dane swept his shin with the baton, quick and mean. The church boy hopped, swore something religious, and found Rook instead. Rook let the ex-cop have the jack and took a step back that invited the church boy into a narrow place, the space between two racks. The boy took it, eager, a truncheon in his hand, that Sunday school calm back on his face. He swung. Rook ducked and let the truncheon burn a line of heat over his wrap. He drove his palm up into the boy's forearm and felt the nerve go dumb on cue. The truncheon clattered. The boy snarled. Polite men make ugly noises when their plan meets brick. Rook grabbed the boy's jacket collar and bounced his face off the edge of a glass rack. Not to break the face. Break the belief. The boy sagged and then snapped back with a dirty headbutt that connected on Rook's cheekbone and lit a cheap firework in his skull. Rook wrote it. The coke hummed a steady note under the pain and kept the edges from fraying. "Let go," the boy hissed. "Make it easy." "Nothing is easy," Rook said. He stepped his heel behind the boy's heel and turned his hips, old school. The boy went down, one knee first, then both, in a prayer posture that fit his hands way too good. Rook reached back without looking and found the telescoping pole in Ty's hands. Good kid. and brought it down across the boy's clavicle with a crack that sounded like a door closing. The boy howled. The sound was human and not. The ex-cop roared then, sick of finesse. He let go the jack and came in with both hands and the kind of tackle that snapped suspect's ribs and got him reprimanded once. Rook pivoted, shoulder-checked him into a rack corner, then caught his belt and yanked up. The ex-cop stumbled, smashed hip first into the upright, and grabbed for the nearest thing, Rook's shirt. Rook allowed it, stepped deeper, got chest to chest, and bit the ex-cop's ear. Sometimes you meet men where they live. The ear isn't noble. It's effective. The ex-cop shrieked in surprise and shame. Rook spat the taste and stepped clear. The ex-cop tried for a punch and got Rook's chain looped around his forearm instead. Rook turned and used the rack as a third hand, fed the chain over the corner and down, and pulled. The ex-cop's forearm pinned to steel, elbow screaming, shoulder bargaining. "Proof!" the woman with the tablet gasped, whisper begging her camera to find moral clarity. "We need a clear—" "Shut that off," Rook said without looking. She didn't. She couldn't. Some machines ride their owners. At the pickup, Ty finally bullied the knot into obedience. The rope came loose. He yanked it free and coiled it, small hands moving like they'd learned this 30 years ago. "Cut!" he shouted. Dane grabbed the rope and ran it around a rack twice, calf muscles singing under denim. The crate lost its leash. The yard inhaled like a room where someone had just moved a couch and found a dead mouse. The church boy on his knees recovered enough to reach for his pocket. Rook watched his hand like a prophecy. "Don't," Rook said. The boy pulled a blade anyway, small, bright, that boring tactical that kills more hands than enemies. He slashed upward at Rook's thigh, a bad angle, desperate. Rook stepped into it again and let it cut low and shallow where meat is cheap. He brought the pole down on the boy's wrist. The blade flew. Rook dropped the pole and snatched the boy's head with both hands, thumbs at the jaw hinges, and drove his face into the lower lip of the rack with a force that wrote a line through his nose. The boy dropped. Not dead, yet. The ex-cop bellowed and ripped his own arm free, skin peeling under the chain in a red comic book panel. He ripped a shard of glass out of the frame like a man pulling a rib from a myth. He came in wide, arcing for Rook's neck, old training drowned in adrenaline. Rook didn't give him a man to hit, he gave him a rack. He sidestepped and shoved the ex-cop's elbow with a hard slap at exactly the right wrong time. The shard slashed the rack post and sent a spray of glitter into the cop's eyes. He blinded himself for half a heartbeat, and that's all the yard needed. Rook caught the ex-cop's wrist, rotated it, sent the shard down, then ground the man's hand into the glass grit until the shard bit his own palm. The ex-cop screamed again and finally went to a knee because physics bribed him. Behind them, the sponsored greeter found his baton and his pride. He charged Dane, who flicked the rope around the man's ankle like a party trick you don't do for kids. The greeter ate gravel. The tablet woman finally saw what her hands were doing and looked sick enough to throw up in 4K. "Stop," she whispered to nobody. The tablet kept filming. Rook had a choice. He hates choices that come with cameras. He could walk, he could maim, or he could wrap this morning in a bow the lottery would honor in gold. That was the ugly math. Somewhere a van wanted proof with neat lines. Somewhere a million sat behind a slot machine's glass, waiting on a limb. The ex-cop made the choice for him. He went for Rook's thigh again, with a second shard he'd kept palmed. Old trick, good trick. He tried to open the femoral like a door. He missed because Rook stepped wrong on purpose and then right on purpose, and old training works both ways. It ended fast. Rook snapped the chain twice around the ex-cop's neck. Not strangling, leverage, and yanked him into the rack frame post. The man's skull bounced. He didn't fold. Rook felt the fight in that square body and matched it. He slid behind, pinning the forearm he'd already burned, braced a knee in the cop's back, and took his hand. Palm up, fingers splayed. He put the ex-cop's own glass shard under the crook of his thumb joint. "Drop," Rook said. "Do it," the ex-cop spat, because pride isn't a survival trait. Rook did it. He jammed the shard in and pulled, quick and shallow enough not to sawing, just to open the artery that ran too close to skin. Not the neck, not theater, the radial. It was quiet. It was merciless. Blood came in a ribbon that didn't sputter. The ex-cop gasped, made to punch, and sagged. Rook kept hold until the line lost pressure. Then he eased him down onto glass like a bed he deserved. The yard paused the way yards do when death happens honestly. The sponsored trio stopped breathing long enough for their cameras to wonder where God had gone. Church boy made a sound like a prayer letter falling on a welcome mat. He pressed a palm to his friend's wrist, as if pressure could call time backwards. It couldn't. Rook's jaw worked, but not for words. He grabbed the roll of contractors' tags from the shed shelf. Orange, cheap, already printed with Time, Cords, Witness. He didn't believe in their God. He believed in paperwork. He looped the tag around the ex-cop's wrist clean. He pulled out the cheap chrome cross from his pocket, the one he'd ripped off neck, and pressed it into the dead hand because ghosts like symmetry. The camera saw. He let it. You rob men of their narrative and they become more dangerous. Sometimes you feed it on your terms. Dane took the tablet woman gently by the wrist and tilted her lens toward the sky. Go film a cloud, he said, kind. She did, a mercy he gave her so she could tell herself a different story later. Ty stood very still, smaller than last night, older than this morning. His eyes were wet with rage, not grief. He breathed through his nose the way Rook had taught him, like it mattered. Take proof, Dane said, griefing under the words, because he knew what 1,000,000 against a forearm wrap looked like. Not for them, Rook said. He kept the tag on the wrist, a badge for the van to swallow. He wasn't cashing. He was closing a chapter correctly on a man who would have slid him neat and called it policy. The church boy reached for Rook's ankle with nothing in his hand and a lot in his eyes. Rook towed him off, not cruel. Go home, he said. You got a real God or you don't. Either way, today ain't for you. The boy looked at his friend's slacked face and nodded once. He stood, bleeding at the mouth, and helped the sponsored greeter to his feet because work never stops. The woman finally set the tablet down and began to cry like a sink you can't shut off. Move, Rook told his own. He tossed the pole back into the shed, pocketed nothing else, left everything ugly where it belonged. They slipped the sag again and dropped into the alley. Dane's hands shook in the tiny way that never leaves a man who just chose a fork in a road. He put the blunt back between his lips, sparked, and inhaled with a ferocity that made his eyes close like prayer. He blew the smoke into his sleeve, and then laughed once without joy. First blood, he said. Now it's yours. Rook took the blunt, pulled, and let the leaf walk his pulse back from the ledge. The coke made the world sharp. The blunt made it honest. He exhaled and tasted pennies and glass dust, and that bakery's butter ghost from the hour earlier. Ty didn't look away. He was gonna open you, the boy said, voice thin and sure. Yeah, Rook said. That was his plan. Good plan, Dane muttered, mean and admiring because he respected a competent enemy even while hating him. Bad map, Rook said. They moved through the clinic spine and back into a city that had already started to pretend that last 5 minutes belonged to a different neighborhood. Sirens coiled uptown. A lottery van turned onto the glass yard block with its hazard lights blinking like prayer candles. The big screen added another gold bar to its diet. The host's teeth gleamed in that tired way expensive teeth do. A lower third Chiron bloomed. Community partners assist in safe proof collection. Dane barked laughter that bordered on bark. Safe, he said. Cool. Shut it, Rook said, but not harsh. Public words have weight. Private ones save your lungs. They cut toward the river for a rinse of cold air. On the way, a hallway church had set out a table with paper cups of Kool-Aid and a handwritten sign that said, Prayers and water, no phones. A woman in flats offered Ty a cup with a look that saw him as a child and also as a soldier. He drank it like an offering. Rook nodded once to the woman. She nodded back, already pouring for a man holding a split lip and a streaming phone. Under the bridge again, the ribs felt smaller. The tarp felt like a relic. Rook sat with his back to concrete and opened the tin. He dropped the chrome cross inside and then closed the lid as if that could muzzle it. Dane didn't talk for a full minute. That's how you know someone's alive in the head. Then he said, "You didn't take his ear," with a crooked grin that wanted to land somewhere better than it could. "Ear's theater," Rook said. He liked theater. Ty curled on the blanket and stared at the knife on Rook's thigh like it had turned into a book he could finally read. "I ain't sleeping," he said. "You ain't," Rook agreed. "You'll rest with your eyes open. Later you'll sleep so hard you won't hear the river." He let the idea of the ex-cop sit between them like a chair no one wanted. He let his heart slow without making it a ceremony. He listened for Ledger's foot and didn't hear it. Ledger wasn't stupid. He'd give the glass yard to the van and spend his time where injuries haven't finished deciding who they're going to belong to. Rook stood, body checking his balance. The Coke buzz sat correctly, not yelling. The blunt had ironed its shirt. The world had edges again. "We go paste the silo myth," he said. "Then we eat." "Bread again?" Dane said, grousing like a man who was grateful anyway. "Bread again," Rook said. "And whatever sweet they hide in the bag for people who don't ask." They moved. The silo ladders were nothing special. Rusted rungs up a concrete grain tube that hadn't seen grain since before half the people on these blocks were born. Rook planted a strip of cloth at the third rung, a bright red shoelace Ty had carried since a summer ago. He tied it there, loose enough to flutter, visible enough to bait. Dane scratched a heart at the base of the ladder with a rock and wrote ROOK plus the sky in childish script. The joke made them both grin even when they tried not to. "Let 'em climb," Dane said, satisfied. "Let 'em think you poetic." "Poetic is a sickness," Rook said, but he smiled anyway. Back under the bridge, the baker's bag delivered an unexpected truth. A third pastry, tucked under the heel of bread, sticky and mean with brown sugar. Ty got first bite because morning had made him old. He took it and made a face like mercy had flavor. Dane split the rest. Rook let the sweetness melt against the silver taste of adrenaline, and the combination worked like a truce. The screen across the cut blinked again, verified. The meter purred. Comments swarmed. Somewhere, an auntie posted a prayer hands emoji, even though she knew better than to trust cartoon palms. Somewhere, a kid retweeted a video without muting it and learned to regret sound later. Somewhere, a clerk adjusted the price of RIP t-shirts and a tag printer overheated. Under the bridge, Rook put his head back and stared at the underside of the world. "We move in 20, he said. "Where?" Dane asked. "South," Rook said, "into the tunnels where the addicts pray with syringes. Ledger won't like crawling there, but his freelancers will. I want to hear what their courage sounds like when nobody's filming." Ty wiped pastry sugar on his jeans and nodded like the world had rules again. Rook sparked the blunt down to its last honest ember and let it kiss his lip. He didn't apologize to anyone's god for what he'd done in the glass yard. He didn't memorialize the ex-cop either. He put the man's face where it belonged, in the file marked necessary, and he kept his hands from shaking by telling them to count exits one more time. "First blood," Dane said again, like he wanted to taste the phrase. He didn't smile when he said it. Neither did Rook. The river breathed. The ribs hummed. The city reset its lies. The million kept turning strangers into enemies and cameras into clergy. Rook kept his people small, and his decisions bigger than the screens. 20 minutes later, they were walking again. The south tunnels were a throat the city cleared every decade and never cured. Grates coughed steam. Tag scrawl layered over older scrawl, names of lovers, sets, saints, lost jobs, lost bets. Rook led with his palm against cold-poured wall, counting seams with his fingertips like braille for survival. Dane drifted half a pace behind, bottleneck peeking from his hoodie, blunt tucked over his ear like punctuation. Little Ty ghosted flat to the opposite wall, Sneaker treads whispering on damp grit, eyes wide not with fear, but with assignment. Half? Dane murmured. Not yet, Rook said. We want ears bigger than teeth. They dropped into a maintenance gallery, ribs of rebar showing where concrete had peeled. The air was scraped raw by bleach someone had splashed earlier to make Sin smell like a clinic. It failed. The tunnels still wore piss ghosts and a sweet rot from a long-ago rat funeral. But over it all lay blunt leaf and cheap incense, addicts trying to negotiate with whatever sits on the other side of chemical courage. Far ahead, a flashlight painted lazy circles on the ceiling. Voices dragged behind it like loose shoelaces. Rook raised 2 fingers. Wait. Voices slid closer. 3 men, 1 woman, shoes wrong for tunnels, sponsored souls that squeaked, not crept. Battery packs hummed. A drone skimmed the ceiling, little fans whining. Rook watched dust churn in lamplight like galaxies getting robbed. The woman's voice had that production smile baked in. We're partnering with first responders tonight. If a verification occurs, we'll assist with safe submission. Dane rolled his eyes. They talk like emails. Ty tugged Rook's sleeve, chin tilting deeper. Another sound braided in, clack of metal on stone, deliberate. Ledger's freelancers, the church boy probably bandaged, nursing a broken prayer. Rook breathed slow. The tunnels squeezed time thin. He slid them into a side throat barely wider than a coffin. Pipes sweated there, warm like animals. He pointed downhall. Ty nodded and vanished 10 yards, posted. Dane tilted the bottle into his palm and exhaled smoke he hadn't taken, just residual from earlier, memory smoke. The sponsored team arrived at the mouth and framed themselves like a miracle. Underground search, the woman breathed. We're hearing reports of the fugitive known as... Rook stepped out of the side throat 3 feet in front of her lens and put 1 finger to his lips. The camera saw everything. The woman saw the finger. She went silent from muscle memory. Producers had drilled hold for drama into her reflexes. The 2 men behind her lifted batons but kept them half down, waiting for orders that never come down here. You want a show? Rook murmured. Pay attention. The freelancers arrived with less ceremony and more motive. Church boy, lip split, face taped in a sloppy cross. His partner knew, square jaw, eyes bored, a scar on his wrist like a white comet. Both wore soft armor under hoodies and carried short hooks with wrapped grips. A third shape lingered back, light bobbing. A medic maybe, or a thief pretending. Evening, church boy said. He sounded like he hated that the word existed. His eyes cut to the sponsored crew, then back to Rook. We're not with them. No one's with them, Rook said. Squarejaw lifted his hook to just below shoulder. We won't play to camera, he said. Promise. Dane coughed a laugh with no spit in it. Promises, he said. Taste like chalk. Move, church boy told the sponsored trio, voice teacher soft and jail hard. You can film the echo. To their credit, cowardice has a kind of clever. The streamers backed up around the bend, lens peeking like a shy snake. The drone didn't move. It held station above the center line, whirring a small, self-important hymn. Night school? Rook asked, chin at the hooks. Work, Squarejaw said. You got your first today. Congratulations on making your hands honest. Rook rolled his shoulders until the forearm wrap tugged and then let it be. You brought church to a sewer, he said. You might be in the right business. They came on the beat, hooks like question marks. They wanted to punctuate the paragraph with Rook's blood. Rook accepted the grammar and erased the sentence. He stepped into church boy's reach and snapped the hook shaft with his chain. Not brute. Correct angle, correct distance, thin aluminum wrapped wrong for a fight. The hook wobbled. Church boy banged it against the wall to straighten it and found Rook's elbow instead, tendered across his taped lip. Taste of copper in God's own hallway. Square jaw flowed. Textbook. Step off line, slap to wrist. Capture. Rook let him take the offhand and used it. He fed the man into the cold pipe with Dane's bottleneck leading the way. Glass met bone with a sound that made the drone rise half an inch in sympathy. Ty slid behind Squarejaw like a roomer and kicked his ankle bulk inward. The ankle bent wrong, then made it right again with a pop. Squarejaw didn't shout. His eyes dimmed and then relit. He punched at air. The punch met Rook's palm and learned about redirection. Rook slotted him into the pipe like a book on the wrong shelf and stepped away. Churchboy tried the old trick. Choke from behind with the hook's crook. Rook ducked and gave him crown, skull into nose. Cartilage made a sound like ripping paper. Churchboy's theology blurred. Dane slipped in and laced the man's knees with chain like a bored janitor tying mop strands. The freelancer went down proper. Squarejaw adjusted, ugly calm back on. He drew something from his sleeve, a syringe capped, not sterile. Plunger already tapped, twitchy. He felt the camera and liked himself for a second. Rook saw the moment and stole it. He took the syringe hand with 2 fingers and a thumb and rotated the world. Squarejaw's wrist faced an angle it respected. The plunger slid home. The needle found his own forearm. He hissed and laughed in the same breath because drugs make men think contradictions are poetry. Rook used the laugh to slap him across the ear, open palm, mean, and gave him a half step to wobble in. The drone dipped lower, lens hungry, little motors smiling. Ty jumped and snagged it mid-air like Freestyle Friday, fingers splayed to avoid blades. He yelped once when a prop kissed knuckle, then twisted, flipped the drone upside down, and killed it. The tunnel grew a size when the whine died. Churchboy rolled to a knee, hook clacking. Dane stepped forward, bottleneck first, and the 2 of them fenced right there in that sewer like bored knights. Hook tried to catch Glass. Glass zizzed and nicked Hook. Dane fainted high and kissed the man's cheek with the bottle's bevel, leaving a crescent moon. Squarejaw shook off his self-stab and lunged at Rook's ribs with a utility blade he wore exact and proud. Rook misloved cutting twice in one morning, but this city doesn't take polite refusals. He took the shallow, sweeping slice across hip to wake his edges and then trapped the blade shoulder with chain. Rap, yank, edges dulled by motion. He shoved Squarejaw into a caged light on the wall and the bulb exploded. Tunnel night deepened, flashlight flickered doing strobe nonsense. Footsteps echoed beyond the bend. More freelancers, sponsored, ledger. The tunnels eat identities and spit out problems. Rook did the one thing that always beats multiplication, subtraction. He shoved Squarejaw back and used the hook hand to pin Churchboy's forearm to pipe with chain. Then he reached up, grabbed the dead drone out of Ty's hands and bricked it into the flashlight. Glass cracked. Darkness got brave. Ty popped a little red beam from his pocket, the angel's gift from the beauty supply trap earlier, and hooded it with his fingers, throwing a blood-lit circle on the floor. Rook loved the smart of that. Bloodlight doesn't blind your shape. Lift, Rook said. Dane lifted Churchboy's hook with his own and laced it into chain. Rook twisted, the chain tightened, and taps hurt where prayer won't help. Churchboy's mouth made the O of hymnals, and his nostrils bled another note. Squarejaw tried once more to play hero. He scooped his blade and went for Ty, because cowards aim small when big fights them. Rook's body didn't think, it moved. He went through the space between them, shoulder first, like a door that owes you rent. The blade glanced off his coat, then his wrap, then tried to apologize. Rook took the apology by smashing Squarejaw's hand against a spilled bolt bin, scattering tiny metal commas all over the floor. Squarejaw swore. Rook shoved his face into the wall until the swear turned into a thought. 2 shapes arrived around the bend with that brand-new hunter cadence. Arms strong, feet dumb, hearts hired. "There!" one shouted, a little too excited. A chest cam winked, a baton rose. Somebody tried to narrate into a mic and swallowed the sentence when the red beam found their shoes. "Back!" Rook said, not to them, to his own. Dane understood. Ty was already where he needed to be. Rook let the new pair see him, let them recognize him from the boards. Then he and his 2 moved backward into the side throat where the pipe heat hugged and the echo lied. The new pair surged like halftime. The floorbolts made their case. Sponsored souls skidded. One hunter windmilled into the wall and kissed paint with his front teeth, leaving gum as proof. The other caught himself on the caged light and got a palm full of broken bulb for his work. Churchboy groaned lullabies. Squarejaw laughed again, then choked on it. "Enough," someone said behind the new pair. Voice polite, pitched to travel, amused at the wrong things. Ledger. He didn't step into the red beam. He let his presence warm the edges of it. "A side throat," he mused. "You always pick the tender spots." Rook heard the angled right foot in the drag over grit. He smiled with no teeth. "You always arrive when someone else paid the check." Ledger ignored the insult because men like him file compliments better. "Walk," he told the freelancers, and they did. Backward, nervous, eyes never leaving the red circle like it was a snake pit. Ledger's shadow lingered a second longer. "You look good in low light," he said, and then he left like he didn't have to prove it. The tunnels exhaled. Churchboy sagged in chain like he'd forgotten he learned how to stand. Squarejaw slid down the wall into a sit that pretended to be strategy. The two sponsored hunters scraped their teeth back together and retreated toward their producer with sorrow and paperwork ahead. Rook unwound the chain from Churchboy's arm and stepped back. Not generous, strategic. Mercy here writes coupons worth real money later. "Go home," he told the pair. "Tell your Sunday friends the sewer baptized you." Squarejaw laughed wet. "That your sermon?" "That's the whole church," Dane said, and palmed a tiny bindle out of Squarejaw's pocket because thieves pay tithes too. They slid the corridor down and hooked a right into a utility room where the city stored shame. Buckets without mops, mops without buckets, a coil of police tape that had forgotten why it existed. Rook killed the red beam and let darkness for a breath. Breath is currency. He made a deposit. Dane's hands trembled. He hid it by rolling a blunt, big and ugly leaf crackling like a bad joke. Rook lit it and passed clockwise. Ty took a taste, small and ceremonial, because victory tastes wrong without smoke around the edges. The coke came out, a whisper halved. Rook didn't want edges sharper, he wanted the middle steady. He nodded, no. Dane muttered, "Copy," and let the tin rest. "That medic back there?" Ty asked, voice wired quiet. He never moved. "He was waiting to film a save," Rook said. "More views than a kill after noon." "You're disgusting," Dane told the air in general. "They are," Rook said. "We keep our blood, or we buy theirs with change." Above them, through grates, the city pitched higher, another gold bar on the screen, another siren in tenor. Bookies erasing and rewriting Rook's odds with digits that didn't sweat. The tunnel's walls seemed to bend toward each other like a hug nobody consented to. Rook pushed off the wall and felt the day decide to shift. "Up," he said. "We need sky long enough to borrow a honest wind." They climbed a rust ladder and came up in a fenced pocket lot behind a supply store that sold both bleach and votive candles. The sky wore sunset like a wound that didn't close. Street level had learned a new sermon since they went under. Someone had paid out a bounty with their own brother on camera, crying. The host's teeth did subdued, the comments did not. Rook angled them away from the shouting and toward a slimmer street where the baker's people pulled down their gate and the angel's cousin stood smoking, eyes alert. A head wrap bobbed at the far curb. Same angel? No, a sister, older, shoulders square as a teacher's. She took Rook in with a glance, sighed like somebody who pays rent on a lot of grief, and flicked ash. "She's 3 doors deeper," she said without preface. "Asked for grape and got purple." Same thing to a kid, different thing to a mother. Rook felt a tight place in his chest loosen a notch. "Keep her moving unpretty," he said. "We do," the woman said. "You keep him moving ugly." She eyed Ty with a softness that didn't sell pity. "You're in the way on purpose?" "Yes, ma'am," Ty said, like a soldier saying hooah in a language that wasn't enlisted. "Good," she said, and went on with her cigarette prayer. They hit the bodega with the radio and bought water, 2 oranges, and a pack of bandages, just in case fate wanted the gesture. The clerk rang them without looking. His eyes were stuck on a TV showing a slow-motion replay of a body hitting tile. Rook put a bill on the counter that could have bought a week's sugar in an older city and not in this one. He didn't ask for change. "Bridge?" Dane asked. Rook shook his head. "Warehouse West is burnt. Glass Yard is a crime scene. South Tunnel's got Ledger's scent. We go where fatigue lives." "East Clinics," Ty said. "Methadone line bent around the block. Nobody looks up." Rook nodded. "And nobody points phones where they sleep. They cut 3 blocks with the kind of pace that gets you mistaken for someone with a plan." The clinics exhaled a different set of ghosts. Chalked names, rubber bands like worms, flyers offering warmth, NA meetings, a street barber with a plastic cape and a blade too clean to be legal. Half the line had blunts behind their ears like pencils. The other half stared at hands that couldn't decide if they'd shake or stop. Rook parked them under a busted security camera and let the noise wash without soaking. Dane passed the blunt to a man whose knuckles told riddles. The man took it, pulled, nodded gratitude and said, "They paying more for pretty now. Proof that looks like TV." Rook filed the sentence under the city tells on itself. It happened fast because the better scenes do. A sedan clipped the curb 2 storefronts down, hopped a little, parked crooked. Out piled 3 young killers with expensive masks tugged down to the chin because the night had warmed and vanity outruns caution. They had that morning geek rebound rage, the high gone sour, the body demanding a new lie. One saw Rook, screen matched him in a blink, and bared his teeth like a dog sure of the fence. "He right there!" The clinic line turned its head like a school of fish. Rook didn't run. The first kid raised a cut-down shotgun disguised as a plumbing pipe, duct tape and murder. Rook's body didn't ask permission. It grabbed Dane's arm and shoved down as the blast coughed buckshot into brick where their heads had been. The line screamed. The barber ducked behind his own chair. Somebody's orange rolled under a tire and squirted smell. "Move!" Dane hollered, as if the world needed verbs. Ty snapped out the red flashlight and painted the kid's feet. Buckshot Boy aimed at the glow, human stupidity as a compass, fired, blew a chunk out of sidewalk, got a face full of dust, blinked like a toddler who'd discovered consequences. Kid 2 jumped the hood, knife up like a movie. Kid 3 flanked with a telescoping baton he'd learned to snap open on TikTok. Rook chose the baton. Baton boys join religion quick when gravity calls. He stepped into baton space, took the first swing on the forearm wrap, and hammered the kid's wrist with the bottleneck twice, down, then across until tendons lost nouns. The baton clanged. Rook slid it underfoot and stomped it into the gutter so no one could preach with it. Buckshot Boy racked again, sloppy. Dane dove for the gun and got a forearm to the mouth for his effort. He tasted metal and laughed wrong. Ty came in under the shotgun's arc and stabbed the kid's thigh with the red light's battery cap hard enough to prove he wasn't ornamental. Kid yelped, flinched, misfired. The blast peeled paint off a clinic door and put a period in a pamphlet about coping strategies. Knife Kid came in slicing like he practiced on fruit. Rook took the slice on his jacket, turned into it, grabbed the wrist and rolled it until joints sang. Knife fell. Rook hoofed it under the sedan like he was mad at metal. Knife Kid tried to bite his shoulder. Rook gave him forehead again. New blood met old. Sirens bent toward them. Ledger's shadow wouldn't come to a clinic. Too many cameras he didn't own, but sponsored rats would. Rook needed this to end with no golden lower third verified in any corner. He made it ugly. He wrapped his chain around Buckshot Boy's barrel, yanked, and slammed the muzzle into the curb so hard the action burped its own shell. Then he put the chain behind the boy's knee and jerked. Body obeyed physics. Boy folded and kissed gum. Rook booted the pipe gun under the sedan to flirt with the knife. Dane snatched the kid's cheap mask and snapped the strap, wrapped it twice around the boy's throat, not choking, just humiliating. Then let go and smirked. "Go stream your breath," he said. Batten Boy tried a last hero flourish, a Superman punch taught by cartoons. Rook caught his bicep midair and gave him to gravity so the pavement could keep the lesson. Kid groaned like math. The line didn't clap. The barber looked at Rook like he wanted to cut his hair and tell him to stop being the city's problem and also thank him and also charge him $15. The clinic guard cracked the door and shouted, "Away from the entrance!" Away from the entrance, like policy could staunch real blood. Rook grabbed Dane's sleeve and Ty's collar and moved. They ran only as long as it took to turn the corner. Then they went back to walking, correct speed, shoulders low, eyes high. The sedan's kids cursed into their own lives behind them. Somewhere a sponsor called the van. Somewhere the angel lit a candle nobody could monetize. Back under the South Bridge for the last time today, the concrete felt less like a friend and more like a necessary ceiling. Dane finally took his half-rail, cut neat and quiet. Rook let a sliver line sing along his nerves, then killed it with leaf, blunt smoke folding over coke brightness until the two made peace. Ty hugged his knees and pretended he wasn't shaking. Rook reached over, palmed the kid's shoulder blade, and pressed until the horse in his chest settled. "Count," Rook said. "3," Dane said. "Glass yard, tunnel, clinic." "3," Ty echoed. "And still 41 hours. He winced at saying it. 41 looks smaller when you chop it into corners, Rook said. He glanced at the chrome cross rattling the tin and shut it tighter. He hated trophies. He loved leverage. Above them, the big screen learned new words: contagion of violence, community healing, bounty clarifications. The host's teeth had gone a shade duller, like shame had scuffed the enamel. The ticker bragged, 2 more verified. The lottery van ate proof like communion wafers. The bookies gave Rook a longer line and bet against themselves just to feel brave. Ledger did not appear. That meant he was busy drafting the next polite horror. Rook leaned back against the cold, put the knife on his thigh, palm on its spine, and breathed until breath did what it's supposed to. Dane slid down the pillar, face turned up like there were stars under bridges. Ty curled into the ratty hoodie Mari had left and whispered something he didn't want them to hear. Rook pretended he didn't. The river breathed big. The city measured. He thought of Mari behind 3 doors. Grape turned to purple. A kid believing slush could hold off this kind of night. He thought of the ex-cop and the church boy and the drone and the hook dent on Ledger's shoulder. He thought of the orange tag blinking gold on some screen, a lie that looked like closure. "Close the day," Dane said, half dare, half plea. Rook nodded. "Day's done." He didn't say it like prayer. He said it like a lock clicking. Final thought. First blood ain't a trophy, it's a receipt. You pay it forward or it comes back with interest.